Caitlin Clark isn't just a player. She's an event, a true force of nature, poised to become the most iconic female star the game has ever seen, already the greatest in collegiate history. Caitlin Clark was just the face of Nike's newest commercial, but there's a detail everyone missed, and it had nothing to do with her incredible shooting range. Nike concealed something far more significant, a message that promises to alter the entire course of women's basketball. Millions were poured into this campaign, featuring a lineup of A-list celebrities, but the true intent flew right over everyone's head, because this was never about marketing. This was a masterfully calculated play, hiding the future right before our very eyes. While the world was caught up debating her three-pointers and watching her highlight reels, Nike was strategically planting clues about a seismic shift coming in 2026, something far bigger than any simple shoe release. That commercial contains a secret blueprint that most people will never be able to decipher, but once you see it, the entire puzzle falls into place, revealing how the WNBA landscape is about to be completely remade. Don't go anywhere, because we are about to unravel what Nike truly unveiled and explain why the insiders are already making their moves. It all began on the driveway where a revolution was forged. That Nike commercial opens with a chorus of doubt, with celebrities openly questioning her shots. We watch Caitlin Clark prove every single one of them wrong, the typical story of an athlete overcoming the odds, or so it seems. And Cunningham is down behind the play, but they've got Caitlin Clark. And you would be wrong, because what Nike actually filmed wasn't just her unshakable confidence. They were documenting a profound ability for pattern recognition. Caitlin Clark devoted her childhood to a slanted driveway in Iowa, begging her father to dig up the lawn just so she could paint a full three-point line. Not for amusement, not for casual practice, but because she was infuriated by limitations. Most children learn to adapt to the world around them. Caitlin forced the world to yield to her vision of the game. She's incredibly fiery and fiercely competitive, yet there's a certain smoothness to her game. That single decision on the driveway reveals the core of how she confronts any challenge. You don't navigate obstacles. You eliminate them entirely. You don't just work around them. You broaden the realm of what's possible, refusing to acknowledge boundaries. And Nike grasped this philosophy long before anyone else. Let me be clear. They weren't shooting an ad celebrating her skill with a basketball. They were capturing undeniable proof that Caitlin's mind operates on a completely different plane. Just imagine for a moment what that driveway truly represented. The harsh Iowa winters, the rough, uneven concrete sloping steadily downhill. The majority of parents would have refused, citing the expense and the immense amount of labor involved. But her father agreed, not with the foreknowledge that she would one day become a professional, but because he saw something much deeper stirring within her. Caitlin Clark's father, Brent, knew that his daughter, even at the tender age of 4, possessed an extraordinary talent. His daughter wasn't simply asking for a more convenient place to play, she was demanding the tools to achieve excellence on her own terms, and that pour of fresh concrete wasn't just a home renovation. It was the foundation for a future of limitless possibility, and that downward slant was more critical than anyone could have guessed, because shooting a ball uphill fundamentally alters everything. The arc of the ball has to change, the point of release must be adjusted, and all of your muscle memory becomes scrambled. Here comes Clark. She fires from deep and it goes down. She drains it. And for most athletes, that would be a situation where you learn to adapt. You learn to shoot with the court you're given, but Caitlin viewed the problem from a completely different angle. Why should my environment dictate the path of my development? Why should I build my skills around existing flaws instead of simply removing those flaws from the equation? It is precisely that line of thinking that separates a great athlete from a truly transformative one. Great athletes learn to maximize the potential of the tools they are given. Transformative athletes completely redesign the conditions of the game itself. With every new level she reached in her career, she was met by a fresh wave of voices telling her that her style would never work there. Moving from college basketball to the professional leagues is a transition whose speed and intensity people just don't fully comprehend. Her high school coaches expressed concerns about college-level defenses, having witnessed countless local legends falter against more organized and disciplined systems. Shooting from a distance is impressive until skilled defenders learn how to close out on you properly, until the speed of the game accelerates beyond your control, and until the sheer physicality of your opponents increases. College basketball analysts confidently predicted that the seasoned veterans of the WNBA would easily expose the limits of her range. Professional athletes have no respect for college accolades. They have seen far too many highly touted rookies crumble under the weight of genuine, high-stakes pressure. The WNBA operates at an entirely different level of intensity, with faster defensive rotations, smarter help-side defense, and battle-hardened athletes who have competed internationally against the best in the world. It was always the same story, just a different chapter, and every single time, Caitlin's response was exactly the same. She never altered her style to conform to their expectations. Instead, she compelled the game itself to bend to the force of her own gravitational pull. Well, I'm just so grateful that I could bring them all here with me. I mean, I wouldn't be the person I am today if it weren't for them. I mean, this is what women's basketball is truly all about, and defenders soon found they couldn't employ traditional drop coverage because she would just launch a shot from 30 feet away. They couldn't trap her high on the court because she would effortlessly split the defense, and they couldn't press her without creating openings that she would ruthlessly exploit. Opposing coaching staffs would dedicate entire film sessions to figuring out how to contain a single player, not to slow her down, but just to contain her. That is an absolutely unprecedented amount of pressure for a guard who routinely takes shots that most coaches would consider to be terrible decisions. But this is the crucial detail that all the doubters completely missed. For her, those were not bad shots at all. They were acts of calculated efficiency. She had already poured thousands of hours into her craft on that slanted Iowa driveway, meticulously developing a shooting range that nobody else was even attempting to practice, while other players were busy working on their floaters and mid-range jumpers. With the spotlight on Becker's mid-range game, the real pressure on Tibbetts came from questions about minutes for his two star players. Caitlin was warping the very geometry of the court, establishing a comfort zone from distances that shattered conventional defensive strategies. Crowd her at 28 feet, and she'll blow by you for a layup. Sag off to protect the paint. And she'll drain it from the team logo. That driveway in Iowa was more than a training ground. It was where she learned that space is merely a suggestion. It's where she decided distance is a choice, and the impossible is just a temporary state of being. This was the very essence Nike saw in her. Their commercials narrative was a direct reflection of her career. A doubt is raised, and that doubt is systematically dismantled not with words, but with sheer performance. When you rewatch the advertisement through that lens, you realize the celebrities featured are far from random. Every one of them is a stand-in for the coaches, the pundits, and the experts who questioned if her phenomenal talent could translate to the pros. And Caitlin's rebuttal was the story of her life. No arguments, no justifications, only undeniable results. That singular approach defined her journey, and Nike built an entire campaign around chronicling it. When a single rookie moved $36 million, it became a story that numbers rarely tell. But Caitlin's first season unleashed a $36 million wave of economic activity. This wasn't just team revenue. This was tangible economic upheaval. Nearly 27% of the entire league's economic impact was driven by one player who wasn't even healthy for the whole season. Caitlin Clark, as we all know, was sidelined for the last 19 games with a persistent groin injury. Absorb the implications of that statistic. A single athlete, performing at less than full strength, was generating more economic activity than established stars who played an entire healthy season. Entire cities could feel her presence when her team came to town. Merchandise sales would explode. Television ratings would surge for her games. And they would vanish when she was absent. This wasn't wishful thinking or some hopeful projection. This was economists documenting real-world financial shifts. Hotels filled to capacity. Restaurants were overrun. The demand for her jersey was off the charts. Let's truly unpack what $36 million signifies. It's not limited to ticket revenue. It's the local restaurants near the arena that saw their business double on the night she played. Hotels in the cities she visited were reporting complete sellouts, a phenomenon previously unheard of for WNBA events. Local economies were charting massive increases in foot traffic, parking income, and merchandise sales that had once been exclusive to championship finals. The economists behind these figures weren't just making estimates. They were meticulously calculating every transaction, Every dollar spent, a velocity of commerce that simply did not exist before this one player joined the league. That 27% figure tells an even more staggering story. The entire WNBA, encompassing 12 teams, hundreds of athletes, and decades of legacy, generated approximately $133 million in economic impact that year. One rookie, in her debut season, was responsible for over 1/4 of that total. And not by playing a full schedule, she lost significant time while recovering. You could see it written on her face. She was clearly fighting through a great deal of pain. She was absent for 4 games, and her impact wasn't because she was posting unbelievable stats every single night. She was still learning, still adjusting, and facing all the usual challenges of a first-year player. And yet, her name alone on the roster was enough to alter economic tides in multiple cities. The television networks picked up on it almost instantly. Games involving her team were attracting viewership on par with some NBA regular season contests. Advertisers who had never given the WNBA a second thought were now desperate for commercial slots during her airtime. Streaming services were reporting unprecedented levels of user engagement. Social media activity went into overdrive, dwarfing anything the league had ever experienced. This wasn't a gradual climb. It was an overnight revolution sparked by a single player's arrival. For the first time ever, the WNBA had cold, hard evidence that a single athlete could fundamentally rewrite their entire business model. And that evidence is worth more than any highlight reel could ever be. Because the moment an organization possesses concrete proof instead of just a theory, the power dynamics of every negotiation shift. Sponsors can no longer fall back on the excuse that women's basketball has no audience when the ratings prove the opposite. Broadcast partners lose their ability to lowball rights fees when viewership numbers command a premium. Arena owners can't pretend there isn't demand when the seats are consistently sold out. Caitlin didn't just play the game. She became the leverage that could move an entire industry. And that's a triple-double for Caitlin. What an astonishing reaction from Kelsey. You can bet Nike was tracking this astronomical ascent with extreme interest. They saw the underlying trend where everyone else saw a one-time event. They knew her economic pull was about something more than just her skill with a basketball. It was about her sheer star power, her capacity to force the world's attention onto women's sports and forge a permanent shift in the audience. Nike understood the most critical element. Those $36 million were the sound of brand new fans arriving in droves. It was new eyes discovering the league. It was young girls seeing a reflection of their own potential in her journey. It was families buying merchandise, showing up to games, and becoming deeply invested in the outcome. That $36 million was never the ceiling. It was always the foundation. Because she built that foundation while she was hurt, while she was a rookie finding her way, and while she was still getting used to the speed of the professional game. Just picture the potential once she's at full strength, her game honed by years of professional play, when she moves in perfect sync with her teammates, having unlocked the secrets of the WNBA's defense, and when her financial tidal wave doesn't just swell, it becomes a tsunami. That Nike commercial wasn't a highlight reel of her past. It was a chilling prophecy of her inevitable future. They were sending a clear signal to investors, to sponsors, to every single skeptic. Watch these numbers climb. Watch her influence multiply. Watch her completely rewrite the financial rulebook. And in 2026, Nike is poised to prove they saw the future. That is the year her signature shoe enters an economic arena she has already conquered. The proof is in. She moves markets. And that shoe is inevitable. The logo we crafted for her has already been met with a wave of incredible enthusiasm. This isn't a prediction of what she might do. It's a fact of what she has already done. The evidence is irrefutable, the pattern undeniable. For Nike, this isn't a gamble. They are simply capitalizing on a proven phenomenon, a shoe designed to be a rebellion against exclusivity. Spring 2026. Caitlin Clark's signature Nike arrives, but it comes with a revolutionary twist nobody anticipated. She completely rejected the industry's sacred formula. It's a time-tested strategy. Use limited releases, exclusive designs, and exorbitant prices to engineer scarcity, fueling demand and maximizing profit on every pair. The entire world of sneaker culture is built on this very principle. It's what sends collectors into a frenzy. The secondary market erupts. The shoes themselves cease to be footwear. They become assets, locked away in pristine condition, never to be worn. This is the undisputed playbook, the blueprint for manufacturing hype and for creating cultural phenomena that bleed far beyond the confines of the game. But Caitlin took one look at that blueprint and threw it in the fire. Her shoe was not conceived for collectors who worship pristine boxes. It was crafted for the concrete playgrounds in communities that have been starved of this very kind of inspiration. Nike's CEO, Elliott Hill, made it clear they are creating this with her, not just for her. The logo, the design, the entire distribution strategy, it's all a collaboration. Caitlin's influence is absolute, touching every single element, and her primary demand, echoing the power she shows on the court with 24/18 fever, was profound. A philosophy as bold as one of her shots from well beyond 30 feet, a creed that turned the industry on its head. Access over exclusivity. She declared war on the entire system, on limited drops, on manufactured scarcity, and on price tags that transform hero shoes into impossible dreams. To truly grasp the magnitude of this, understand one thing. Nike's signature division is a machine that prints money, and its fuel is exclusivity. The entire Jordan dynasty was forged in this strategy. LeBron's legendary line adheres to the very same script: release limited editions, create ravenous waitlists. Then you allow the secondary market to inflate the price into an untouchable luxury. It's a masterclass in capitalism, yet Caitlin saw a different path. The model of exclusivity thrives in men's basketball because the audience is already captive and colossal. Millions of boys are already on the court. They have a pantheon of idols to look up to. They can see a clear reflection of their own dreams in the sport's future. But the landscape of women's basketball is entirely different. Its audience is still being forged, still growing. Young girls are still forced to justify their passion for the game, confronting a gauntlet of economic, societal, and cultural barriers that boys seldom face. To make Caitlin's shoe an exclusive prize wouldn't just be limiting its sales. It would mean reinforcing the very barricades she is fighting so hard to demolish. A silent declaration to kids from low-income homes, to girls in countries where the sport is a fledgling dream. The very children who need a champion to believe in, the ones who look to one of college basketball's brightest stars. They watch her live out her fantasies on the court, which gives them a flicker of hope that their own dreams are possible. The message of exclusivity would have been, this isn't for you. But she saw her shoe on international courts, fueling youth programs. She saw it in gyms, where a spark of inspiration is infinitely more valuable than another trophy for a collector's shelf, which is why the mention of China was so deliberate. It was a declaration of her intent for worldwide expansion from the very beginning. While Nike's presence in Asia is gargantuan, the market for women's signature basketball shoes has remained largely untapped. Caitlin insisted that her shoe launch globally from day one, not as an afterthought, not as a market test, but as the central tenet of her mission. Because Caitlin grasps a fundamental truth many athletes overlook, visibility sparks opportunity, but only if that light shines far beyond the current fan base. Her philosophy for the shoe is a perfect echo of her style on the court. Demolish boundaries, never reinforce them. When she pulls up from 30 feet, she is openly disrespecting the accepted limits of a player's range. Just when the defense relaxes, she unleashes a shot from deep, rewriting the rules of the possession. And when she insists her shoe be sold globally at an accessible price, she is openly disrespecting the traditional laws of market segmentation. Both actions are a direct assault on conventional wisdom, and both are fueled by the same radical belief that expansion is infinitely more powerful than exclusivity. Industry experts are forecasting a 9-figure revenue stream, positioning her to have a top 5 signature franchise in all of basketball, regardless of gender. And yet, you will never hear Caitlin talk about profits. Her focus is on reach, on the millions of girls who will see themselves in her journey, and on dismantling the barriers that separate aspiration from reality. Initially, Nike's own financial strategists were terrified, convinced that this philosophy of access would utterly destroy their profit margins. But then, the real calculations began. A wider distribution would mean a massive increase in sales volume. That massive volume would more than cover the smaller profit on each pair sold. More importantly, forging a lifelong bond with a customer at 8 years old creates far more enduring value than a single high-price sale to a collector. This realization completely upended Nike's entire marketing philosophy. They were no longer just in the business of selling shoes to collectors. As the undisputed king of sportswear, the company has navigated treacherous waters in recent years. Now, they're selling hope to kids who need to see that their wildest dreams are not just possible, but valid. The commercial is a masterclass in this new philosophy. The phrase "from anywhere" isn't about a place on a map, it's about your starting point in life. It's a powerful message to young athletes everywhere. Where you come from has no bearing on where you are destined to go. That driveway in Iowa was sacred, not because of its zip code, but because of the colossal belief it contained. And belief, when it's nurtured correctly, ignites a movement. So why did Nike deliberately slow play the launch? They could have flooded the market with her shoe. Caitlin's rookie season was a whirlwind of relentless media attention. Strike while the iron's hot. Isn't that what they say? Every marketing Bible preaches the same gospel. Capitalize on momentum the second you have it. The Rookie of the Year buzz was deafening. Launch the shoe. The viewership numbers were shattering all-time records. Launch the shoe. Social media was a raging inferno of her name. Launch the shoe. The pressure from Nike's own board, from its retail allies, from anxious investors, it all demanded one thing. Release it now. Get the product onto shelves while her name was still ablaze in the headlines. Secure the sales before the public's fickle attention wandered elsewhere. Instead, Nike held back. Spring 2026, a full 18 months after her WNBA debut. That specific timing pulls back the curtain on Nike's real strategy. They aren't chasing a fleeting trend. They are building an empire. By 2026, a perfect storm of factors will converge. Caitlin will be fully recovered from her injury, operating at her absolute physical peak, unburdened by the limitations of rehabilitation. The league's own growth is exploding on an upward trajectory, with expansion teams opening new markets and groundbreaking television deals delivering unprecedented exposure. Global interest will be a cemented fact, not a hopeful projection, meaning international fans are already deeply committed to her journey rather than Nike gambling on that interest to magically appear. Media alliances will be locked in, broadcast. Contracts will be expanding, and, most importantly, Caitlin will be putting the finishing touches on her second season. There goes Clark. That's the thing you get with her, that explosive pace and those visionary passes. That second season is absolutely critical. Rookie years can be a beautiful accident. Sophomore seasons are what prove you're the real deal. Defenders get an entire offseason to dissect your every move. Nike needed undeniable proof that Caitlin was not just a flash in the pan. Maya, they needed confirmation that her dominance could survive the inevitable counter-strategies from defenses, the physical evolution of her own game, and the sophomore curse that every great player must face. Nike revisited the legend of Michael Jordan, studying his rise with an almost religious obsession. His first signature shoe, the iconic Air Jordan 1, didn't appear during his rookie year. It was unleashed only after Nike had spent months constructing a narrative, igniting a firestorm of controversy with the NBA over banned colors, and engineering cultural earthquakes that transcended the sport of basketball itself. They dissected the arc of LeBron James. His first signature shoe arrived only after Nike had anointed him the chosen one, only after they had built a fever pitch of anticipation throughout his high school days, only after the story had already been etched in stone. Every signature shoe that became a cultural force rather than an expensive footnote followed this exact blueprint. The lesson was clear. Perfect timing is infinitely more powerful than fleeting hype. Jordan's first shoe was a monumental success because Nike first built an entire universe around him. The high school prodigy evolving into an NBA titan, evolving into a global icon. Each chapter of that story needed time to breathe. Caitlin's deliberate delay is guided by the very same logic. The people running Nike are not gambling on her potential. They are investing in a proven formula. Her seismic rookie impact served as the proof of concept. Yes, one single player can fundamentally alter the economic reality of women's basketball. Her second season will provide the proof of her endurance. Yes, that impact can be sustained even when defenses adapt and the novelty begins to fade. The spring 2026 launch is set for after that sustainability is confirmed, not before. By then, 2 full seasons of irrefutable data will exist. Television ratings will be tracked across multiple years. The economic impact will be measured across complete cycles. Her global audience growth will be documented through sustained metrics, not just isolated, sensational spikes. This patience is the ultimate testament to Nike's true belief they are not simply making a shoe. They are launching a dynasty, a multi-year, multi-product, global extension of the brand that demands a rock-solid foundation, not a fleeting spectacle. This careful layering of story and substance creates a depth that traditional, short-sighted marketing always misses. Nike has learned from the ghosts of its past failures. They've watched signature shoes implode because brands pushed a product before the story had fully blossomed. They have seen athletes incinerated by the crushing weight of premature commercial pressure. With Caitlin, they are building something different, slower, deeper, and designed to endure. And the 2026 timing ensures that when the shoe finally drops, it lands on bedrock, not on uncertain ground. Everyone missed the master plan. This is what Nike was really building. That wasn't an advertisement. It was a chronicle of the inevitable. Each and every element within that film echoed the same truth, just from a different perspective. The famous faces embodied skepticism. Caitlin was the living validation. Every single shot signified expansion. You see Caitlin Park driving the lane, searching for an opening. But the story underneath was all about replicating a pattern. Caitlin's ascent from a driveway in Iowa to the height of the WNBA isn't remarkable simply due to her skill. What set her apart was how she confronted barriers. For her, impossible was never a conclusion. She viewed it as a temporary hurdle that demanded a more flawless performance. Nike understood that this way of thinking reached far beyond the court. It is the spirit of an entrepreneur. It is the mindset of a founder. It is the very ideology that forges movements, not just livelihoods. The film artfully weaves this concept into its very fabric. Just watch the sequence unfold. A challenge is presented, a shot is taken, the basket is made, skepticism is reevaluated, and the cycle begins anew. With every rotation, the pressure mounts. With every rotation, the disbelief starts to crumble. Until finally, at its climax, skepticism gives way to recognition. Nike was never just marketing Caitlin's incredible range. They were marketing the very method of altering perceptions with irrefutable proof. And this exact model maps directly onto the entire journey of women's basketball. For generations, the sport has been told it was a lost cause, that it would never turn a profit, that it couldn't draw an audience, that its professional leagues were doomed to fail. Caitlin's economic power, that $36 million of evidence, is the game-winning shot that silences the crowd. It's the irrefutable outcome that forces skeptics to reconsider everything. And Nike's 2026 shoe release, that is the next phase of the cycle, the next arena where the risks are higher and the naysayers are confronted with fresh validation. The brilliance of the film is rooted in its straightforwardness. It makes no case for the worth of women's basketball. Instead, it showcases the formula proving that value is forged through relentless performance against all opposition. It reveals that international markets will meet women's sports with their wallets wide open. I don't even need to say it. You think a shot from that distance is astounding? Think bigger. This isn't just about capturing attention. It's about proving the economic engine roars to life when given the right fuel. And Nike concealed this entire manifesto under a veneer of long-range shots and famous faces. They crafted a message so approachable that the everyday viewer could appreciate it, yet so complex that analysts of women's sports economies could decipher the architecture of a revolution. And that kind of two-tiered messaging that is marketing at its most masterful. Nike didn't just release an ad. They unveiled a chart for the future, a detailed guide pointing precisely to the next destination for women's basketball. And it explains why 2026 will be remembered as the turning point everyone talks about for years to come. Caitlin Clark's odyssey, from that uneven driveway in Iowa to the launch of her own signature shoe, is more than just her narrative. It is a validation of the entire process for every young hopeful looking on. That $36 million was never the summit. It was the bedrock. The decision to make the shoe widely available wasn't a flaw. It was a tactic. The postponed release date wasn't a sign of doubt. It was a calculated move. Every single thing Nike revealed to us was deliberate. They were chronicling an uprising while the world believed it was just watching game tape. So, where does it go from here? Women's basketball is now crossing into a domain once held exclusively by men's athletics. Worldwide brands, franchises, valued in the billions, a cultural influence that transcends the final score. And at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark. She is no longer simply playing a game. She is redefining the limits of possibility. The future is not on its way. According to Nike's grand design, it has already arrived. We were simply too distracted to notice the moment it touched down.